In secularism, what we have done is, if you go back and read the literature that was written at that time, you had all these people, Muslims, going to Pakistan. Okay, all of them were going to Pakistan. And there was so much concern among the Indian leaders of the day that they wanted to say that Muslims will get even more than what they'll get in Pakistan.
Okay, you talk about this caste system. When and where did this exactly start? Why it is important is, if you read all the caste system theory, what it says is that the first three varnas, so-called varnas, right, subjugated the fourth varna. They created this oppressor-oppressed model. And why was it so? Because the first three varnas were of Aryan, and these were the native people of the land. That is why they discriminated against them. That is why they oppressed them. That is the logic which was given.
All I can submit and say is that history is a very important subject. It can be weaponized very much against us. It's important to learn the language if you want to go into the history. Otherwise, history will always be through secondary sources, and we will fall flat.
Namaskar everyone, and thank you for attending this. I know the Bangalore traffic is not something to really even think about. So really, I know many people who wanted to come when they came to know some of these great giants are here, including myself. But they said it's very difficult to actually travel within Bengaluru. So really appreciate you coming here. The main subject is the narratives that every Bharatiya should know. And so when I came to know about the specific topics that these individuals, including myself, we are going to address, there is so much of a distinction. Although all of these narratives you must know, but there is so much of a distinction. So what I thought, instead of me asking one question and asking them to narrate that, because just changing from one speaker to another, you will find such a huge distinction. You have to almost rearrange your brain cells to understand what they're talking about. What I talk to them, and we are on the same page here who are on the podium, each one of us will take about 15 to 20 minutes to make their point, a specific work that they have done, in most cases the recent work that they have done, and from that, what narrative you ought to know. I mean, Shiva Shastri is my friend for a very long time. We go plus decade plus. Abbas and myself, we were together 7 days ago in another beautiful city of India in Jaipur. So I will also hope that you will get to hear some of the unique things they are doing. In no specific order, I want to call each one of them. I will go last if there is a time left. And then we will also go for question and answers.
Vande Mataram.
Vande.
Elrigu Namaskara. I'll try not to take I don't talk that. I talk a lot, but I don't give very long lectures. Here's a very nice quote that I heard. When the slave whips himself after the master has gone, the work of colonization is complete. That is to say, here is a country, Bharat. We have been colonized, and the colonizers have taught us, do this, do that, this is right, this is wrong. And now the colonizers have gone, and we still continue to do the same things that they taught us because we are afraid. If you do something original, if you drink up something Bharatiya, I'm going to slap you and say, no, this is wrong. This is what is going on. We have developed a great fear of the white man and respect for what white people say. What they say is always right. If you look at any TV channel, you look at, say, Kumbh Mela, millions of people, they'll catch the one white person and say, what is your opinion? Because this is what we like to listen to. We've misused expressions like Atiti Devo Bhava. Anybody comes, chalo, aajao, we respect you. We've also, I always remember, perhaps when it's a very famous movie. It was Jaya Bachchan, Jaya Baduri those days. That song she sings, Humko Man Ki Shakti Dena. दूसरों की जय से पहले खुद को जय करे. That means to say, even if somebody is doing something wrong, Don't tell them, you say, maybe my mistake is there. This has become a problem with us, serious problem with us. Now, you see, what happens is, our national logo is Satyameva Jayate. I mean, Satyameva Jayate, we must always look for the truth. Okay, we must stick to Satya. Unfortunately, we've been talking about history and Itihasa and related subjects. History is a poison. Itihas has been there for, if you read what Nilesh has said, it goes right back 40, 50,000 years. There are records, there are actually narratives that go back that far. Believe it or not, we don't like to believe it. We believe only in BC, AD and things like that. But this is a fact. So we've had Itihasa for so long. History, it's like you have a glass of water, clear water, and you put a drop of red dye in it. The whole water becomes red. Once the water is red, it's completely red, it's contaminated. And that is what history has done. What is history? Perhaps the best explanation I have seen is from somebody whom Chaitra ji also knows, and it's S.N. Balagangadhara, Professor Balu. History was something that was invented by the Christians. They said history is, you need records. You need to have written records, you need to have a chronology. And it started with the birth of Christ. Because we have records from birth of Christ. So this is history. Anything before that is nonsense. That was modified a little bit because Old Testament books, a few historical things came up. So up to 2000 BC they will go. Anything outside that is completely nonsense. So what's happened is, this is what we've been taught. It's not history. Itihasa is not history, but it's also not myth. But we have been taught that it is myth, that it's complete nonsense, these things cannot happen. Why Itihasa, to what part of Itihasa is historic, what part is like a story or a narrative has been expounded very well in the morning session. But what we are doing after saying Satyameva Jayati is we are lying to ourselves. And you see, now history is the only thing that is taught in schools. And you all know what sort of stuff is taught. Now, from my viewpoint, this is the problem. This is how we hide history. How many children are taught why Pakistan was created? Okay, why was Pakistan created? Pakistan was created merely because a set of Muslims in India said, we cannot live with Hindus. Who teaches this? Nobody teaches this. What was the Direct Action Day? Direct Action Day was 1 year before independence, 1946, when Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, got into a frenzy, got Muslims and started killing Hindus in Bengal. Is this taught? No. Massacres of partition, India and Pakistan were formed. How many people talk about massacres? Yes, there is some literature about massacres, at least that is available. Then, Bangladesh, 3 million people were killed. This is within my lifetime. Of course, most people are younger than that. Most people may not have been born in 1971. I witnessed the war, at least in the news. 3 million people were killed, 50% of them were Hindus. And Indira Gandhi actually hid the fact that Hindus were being killed because it would cause communal tension. And then Kashmiri Pandits. The problem is, unless we are able to put these things out in public, so people, there is a fear that if we tell the truth, Hindus might rise. This is the sort of government Indian viewpoint. Hindus will rise up and start killing each other. We are not like that. What we need is for the truth to be told, for reconciliation. We are a nation where we debate. We don't kill. We don't pick up swords and kill. But the truth has to be told. We can't keep on hiding the truth. This is one of the issues that I have. The other thing that mental colonization did to us is put very, very low self-esteem. We think we are completely useless. Nothing. We just don't, we don't recognize anything good about India. When we talk about, say, for instance, we talk about Venice of the East. What is Venice of the East? Don't we have beauty in what is Switzerland of the East? We have to compare with some Western entity to say it's great. We talk about world-class thing. When you say something is, if you say that the Tejas aircraft made in Bangalore is world-class, what you're trying to say is that there is something else in the world that is very good and you are comparing with that. Don't we have any pride in what we do? And the other lie that we tell ourselves that has been, well, let me talk about, this is again in the context of what is history, what is Satya, what is the truth. Secularism. And secularism is a topic that keeps coming up. What have, we, in the last 1 week, we've had a whole lot of terrorist sympathizers, terrorists caught. There's been 2 bomb blasts at least. And then we hear in the news that there's radicalization. The problem is like this. In secularism, what we have done is, if you go back and read the literature that was written at that time, you had all these people, Muslims, going to Pakistan. Okay, all of them were going to Pakistan. And there was so much concern among the Indian leaders of the day that they wanted to say that Muslims will get even more than what they'll get in Pakistan. So in India, they said that you can have 4 wives, no problem. This is not allowed in Pakistan. Pakistan does not allow 4 wives. We will give you, to go to Hajj, we'll give you some money so that you can go. And then you can have your own educational institutions. And this has been a problem. So we have got, the state and Hindus cannot interfere with their educational institutions. And in their educational institutions, they teach certain things. What do they teach? I think we are all educated people. We need to know what is the difference between, Anand Ranganathan on TV keeps saying this, what is the difference between a good Muslim and a bad Muslim? So, most of us, secular people, we say Abdul Kalam was a good Muslim, or K.K. Muhammad, the architect, or the archaeologist, was a good Muslim. The fact is, a good Muslim follows exactly what is in his books, in the Quran, the Sharia. A good Muslim is a person who has to hate non-Muslims. So in that sense, Taliban is a good Muslim. All those doctors who have been arrested in the last few days are good Muslims. Hindus cannot understand this. But we need to understand. I think we've got enough brains to understand. Okay, and there are millions of Muslims who don't follow all these things. We call them good, but the fact is, technically, they're not good, and in their societies, they will get punished if they start criticizing terrorists. If there is a terrorist act, we ask, why don't Muslims criticize? They can't criticize, because they know it is bad, but those people are going as per the book. This is the problem. Hindus don't understand this. And unless we teach these things, unless we share these things, nothing is going to go forward. I won't go very far after this. We have a lot of good things in India, but we don't talk about them. It's like, we, the media, and we Indians, many people on social media, we use the Sharmaji ka beta meme. You probably know the Sharmaji ka beta meme. That is to say that, you have this boy who's come back from his exam, or he's got his exam results, and he may have passed, or he may have come 10th or 15th. And his father tells him, Sharmaji ka beta dekho, Sharmaji's beta has done so well, he's got so many marks, why don't you also do that? We always look at first. You see, India, in many ways, is in the top 3 or 4 countries in the world. But we are always looking at those fellows, the West particularly. We don't look at the 180, 200 countries below us. We are we are a bit like, for younger people, I don't know whether anybody still reads Asterix comics. There's a fellow called Obelix, strong guy. Obelix doesn't know how strong he is. Indians don't know how strong we are. We have a great presence, but we act as though we are Somalia or Congo. Our media act like that. This is what we don't realize how big we are. We're huge. We are the top in so many things. And, I won't list out the things. In fact, it would be nice if somebody writes about it, but I'll just mention it. Recently, somebody from Ireland, small country, 1/3 the size of Karnataka, 1/12 of the population, sent me a children's book, picture book on Ireland. Very nice, painted, hand paintings, and print. There is nothing in it. It's a green country. There are so many people. These are the counties. These are the nice buildings. This is how the government runs. It's a book that anybody can read in about 5 minutes. For that little country, they've written such a lovely, we need books like that. We need books that teach our children, our railways, our industrialization, space program, nuclear submarines, ships, aircraft carriers. There's so many things we've done. The bridges, the roads, the infrastructure. a lot of things have been achieved, and we need to put this in a format that children can read and inculcate pride in our children rather than the completely negative outlook, that we have. And, I have a very positive outlook about India. Maybe I am like that. But the positivity is not going to come unless all of us work on it. And let's try and do that. Thank you. I hope I've stuck to the subject.
So next would be Sri Balaji with his presentation. Thank you.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It's a great tribute to an Acharya is to have the Vidyarthis having a spirit of inquiry. So if we look at Professor K.S. Narayanacharya's works, the sheer volume, and not just the volume, the breadth of his work, what all the subjects he has dealt with, and the spirit of inquiry which he has tried to inculcate in all of us. Example, talking about Veda Samrakshana Parichaya to then suddenly we go into who really killed Mahatma Gandhi, right? Such vast array of topics. He has tried to inculcate that habit of an inquiry in us. And I think it's a fitting tribute to his memory by our organizers, which is, I think, Subbu Publications, Udbhava, Param Foundation, and Sahitya Prakashana, to have such events to honor that memory. So in the morning, we had this talk, and the theme was, I think, history, Itihasa, and myth. Right. So how I would connect this tree is to say that there is this phrase called caste system. Right? So how many of you have actually heard this phrase, caste system? Yes, no? If you can say yes, that will be great. I can almost all, great. Right? How many of you think that India had some kind of a caste system? Yes, no? Okay, so yes means you agree there was some caste system. So there is a very famous book on caste by Professor Nicholas Dirks. And Professor Nicholas Dirks opens his book with this statement, right, which is that when thinking of India, it is hard not to think of caste. Right? In comparative sociology, in common parlance, and I am reading it from his exact quote, caste has become a central symbol for India, indexing it as fundamentally different from other places, as well as expressing its essence. So there is a lot of English words. So essentially what it tries to tell is, anybody who is born as a Hindu, like a iron gets attracted to a magnet, somehow they are born into this system called the caste system, right? And as per a lot of Western literature will tell you it is not very good and all. So over the period of so many hundreds of years, we are still trying to though we are trying to eradicate it, but we are still getting attracted to it like a magnet, right? This is the theory, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this, that caste system is a myth. Okay. If I may request all of you, can you please repeat it after me? Caste system is a myth. Thank you so much. And the reason I requested you all to repeat it is, if we don't say that clearly, that will become the history, which is they are already trying to make it into, and they will use it as a way to look at our Itihasa. So that's how your history, Itihasa, and myth get connected. They manufacture a myth, put it in your history books, and they view your Itihasa with that lens. So if I'm... Okay. So you may ask me what is an example. Let's look at our Itihasa, Ramayana. Now what they are saying is, Ramayana is a story of Aryan invaders who came into India, who had a battle with the natives over here. So, and that battle is Ramayana. Okay? So that is how the myth became a history. It became now a way to view Itihasa. Okay. Now, if you have played any sports, I think all of you might have played, I'm sure at least cricket, right? So they will tell us that no team wins by just playing defense. Right? So we have to play an offense as well. Okay. So when the moment the word caste system comes up, I have seen many discussions where people will say there is no such thing like caste, it is varna system, then there is no varna by birth, then there is varna by occupation, then there is a jati system, jati is evolving. So all that they will try to explain. That's all under the assumption that the other person who is bringing up the myth is saying it genuinely. It may be so or it may not be so. Right? So how do we play offense? So first of all, let's go back to the defense. Right? If you are inclined, maybe from a scholarly perspective, from an academic perspective, or just for a knowledge perspective, if you want to know about how the Shastras are dealing with Varna system, what are the myths about the caste system, how they are all to be reputed. So there is almost a 300-page plus book, which I have and Subbu Publications have kindly published it. So that book, you can use it as a reference. And book was specifically made with a lot of quotes. Because when we interacted with a lot of parents and also with what they call now Gen Z, right? Gen Z, when they were talking to me, they always wanted to know what is the source. Right? They had a lot of doubts about caste. They, in fact, a lot of what I would say as some kind of a self-hate about our own civilization. So that's when they come and speak with me. And when I give them a particular refutation, then they say, oh, can you give me the source? And not only that, they immediately will kind of use their phone to check whether we have said is accurate or not. Right? That's your next generation for you. Right? So in my times, when my father says something, and that's the end of the story, right? I have only one choice, to agree. Right? There is no other choice. So now generations have changed. Okay. So the book Casticide is available. So if you are interested to know about all those refutations and all what the Shastras are saying, what are the accusations, that is one way to look at it. Now, how do you want to play offense if you are not kind of wanting to be on the defensive? You can ask with some simple questions. What is the definition of this caste system? Is there a sociologically, legally accepted definition of caste system? You could start with that. And the next question you can ask is, okay, you talk about this caste system. When and where did this exactly start? Then the next question. Did it start in one particular place in Bharat? Or was it like what happened during the Corona period, right? Suddenly the government announced a lockdown, right? So everybody has to stay 40 days and then we all, like that, did all the kingdoms come together and then say, we now invented a new system called caste system, right? Let's all from tomorrow change into this system. Did it happen like that? Now the next question you could then ask is, okay, did it start in one particular place? Right? If it started as per their own theory of caste system, the majority of the population was subjugated, correct? They were oppressed. So if it started in one particular kingdom, why would people in another kingdom say, yes, I like this idea, I would like to be oppressed, right? Can we just bring this system into us? Now, even today, when we see the central government come up with some policies, every state government will kind of look at it, right? And then they will say, hey, I think this may not suit my state. Or they may say, I will have to do some modifications and implement that policy. Right? There are not many subjects which the state government says, I think I'm just going to follow all the central government's policies. And we are in the same country, right? So that flexibility is even allowed in our current constitution, right? It respects that each state will have its own different needs. So as per our own historians, they say that all our kingdoms were very busy quarreling among themselves. Right? There never was a period where we had a great empire which was supposed to have taken all India across. Yeah? So kings were quarreling, but then every king said, I think this is a great system, I would like to get it implemented in this country. How logical is this? Right? Now the next question which will come is, did it start in one place and if it spread to all the other places, what was the mechanism or institution which was there to enforce it? In the period of lockdown also, so much of enforcement was required, right? The civilians, public were made to stay in, but so many government agencies, so many frontline workers took a lot of risk and they were out on the road, right? Protecting us, so-called, right? So when government has to have so much of machinery to enforce something like this, how did the caste system magically get enforced? And there was no trace of it. There is no historical evidence of all this happening. Right? So these are the questions we must start asking. Right? And will we get answers? Let us see. Right? But let's start asking these questions at least. Right? Now, the second way to play offense is, let's assume that there is a child born in this area, right, in a maternity hospital. A janana has happened, and this child will have parents, which is the first previous generation. Yes, father, mother, two. Okay. Now, the previous generation to that, they will have, the mother will have two parents, father will have two parents. Right? Now, if it is in America, I'll have a lot of questions on this, right? So in India is fine, right? So at least you're not debating this with me. So I'll say I have to be very general, neutral sometimes, right? So two parents, we'll go with that, right? So that I remain politically correct, right? So 2 plus. Now, what will be the third generation? The third generation will be that those 4 grandparents will have 2 parents each, which will be 8. So in mathematical terms, we call this as the 2 power n series. 2, 2 power 2, 2 power 3 is 8, 2 power 4 is 16. So when we go to 2 power 10, it will be 1024. Right? So 10 generations before, this child which is born today has got 1000 ancestors. So I'm sorry, lunch and mathematics don't go together well, I know, right? So is everybody with me so far? Great, thank you. Right? So now this 2 power n series has got a unique phenomena. 2 power 10 is 1024. If you go to 2 power 20, it will become 10 lakhs. It is 1048576. So if anybody wants to check, they can check in their calculator. So 20 generations back, this child would have had 10 lakh. So you can still say, okay, possible. 30 generations back, then if we go, 2 power 30 becomes 1 billion, 100 crores. Right? Now let's look at what that 30 generation mean. Let's say in 100 years, 3 generations are there. Right? So a person is there and then they have, he or she has a child and then they will have a grandchild. Within a period of 100 years, 3 generations they will see. Right? Fair enough? Everybody okay? So 30 generations means, if I do my math, it is 10 centuries before. So 10th century, 11th century, give you a take. In 10th century and 11th century, the world population itself was around that. Okay. So the world population itself, they estimate between, I think, 275 to 400 million something. So how can this child have 1 billion ancestors? So there is some wrong we are doing in the maths, obviously. Correct? So the issue here is, we are counting each one of these ancestors as unique individuals, unique persons. But then second cousins marry, distant relatives marry, all these are there. So in multiple places, the same person will be repeating after 3-4 generations. So there is a mathematical model for it. Okay. So there are some models, but commonly you take a model which will say that the 1 billion number is not accurate. You should take 0.09 something. Okay, say 97 something. Let's take for simple argument 0.1. So 0.1% of 1 billion will become around 10 lakhs. So now this is a reasonable number. Right? 10 lakhs, 30 generations back, they would have had. Now here comes the caste system. If you see all the caste system literature, they went through, the most common thing they will talk about a word called, what is the characteristic of caste system? If you ask, they will say endogamy. The word they will call is endogamy. Endogamy means marrying within the same community or a tribe or something like that. So that is what marrying within a particular group. It's called endogamy. So every caste is supposed to be marrying within itself. That is endogamy. As per the British's own calculation, in South India at least, they tabulated no less than 370 plus castes. So, if caste system theory says that each of these groups was marrying within themselves, so this 370 will have to be multiplied by 10 lakh ancestors. Okay. So, if you multiply, how much do you get? 37 crores? 37 crores? Yeah, 37 crores. So, the world population itself, that time, the whole world population was sitting in South India. That's what the math tells you. Right? Now, so this is how you can challenge this. This is called, in the technical parlance, they call it pedigree collapse. Okay. So now, the moment I bring this up, then somebody said, so Guruji, so you are telling me that there were intercaste marriages during that time. Right? I said, I'm not telling anything. I'm just saying that there was endogamy is supposed to be the essence of caste system, so-called caste system. Right? People have written thousands of books on it. Right? So you go pick up books on caste system, there are hundreds of this. Right? Now I have written only one book, and now you come and ask me a clarification, because I just pointed out a logical inconsistency in their argument. That's all. Okay? So now it is for them to come and explain to me how it all worked. Agree or not? Okay. In legal terms, we call it onus probandi, because the person who makes the accusation has the responsibility to prove it, not the other way. Okay. So this is the second way you can play the offense. Okay. Now, there is a important thing. The caste as a word itself, we should not use it, and I think many of you even pointed out when I started with the word caste, which is like great, right? Because the caste word comes from the casta, which was of Portuguese origin. I think it's Spaniard origin, which went into the colonies of Spain in Mexico and other Latin American countries. And it comes with certain connotation called the limpeza de sangre. Okay. So, limpeza de sangre means the purity of blood. Okay. It was essentially a racist theory of caste, so which has come. And I think Dr. Pawan Gupta-ji, I think in the morning in inauguration, he spoke about, right? There are no such thing like phrases and words which are neutral, right? So these do have a meaning, these do have a perspective. So we must actually start challenging, attaching the word caste with India. So, and then we must go back and then challenge some of these narratives. So, what are the steps? Now, I will, in respect of time, I will say a few things. The first step we are done to dismantle this is by going to the honorable courts and saying that there is no such thing like a Aryan race or Aryan invasion. Okay. Yeah. So we have done that. And with Ishwara's blessings, I filed this case myself in the Honorable Chennai High Court. And I argued the case myself, because there is a provision by which I am allowed to argue my own case in the honorable courts. And the courts relied on the evidence, and then they said they gave me a hearing with NCERT and another organization called SCERT. These are textbook committees. The court said, Honorable Court said, you are giving a lot of evidence, but obviously the textbooks have also been written by experts. How can we be the experts to decide one way or other? But we will give you a personal hearing opportunity. Right? After the hearing, I submitted the evidences to them. So I'm happy to report that the NCERT part and the SCERT, they have clearly agreed that there is no such thing like Aryan race. And there is no such thing like Aryan invasion. And why is it important to us? That is the first step to dismantle this caste system. Because this is a system which has been, system of myths which has been built brick by brick. So we have to start pulling out each one layer. Why it is important is, if you read all the caste system theory, what it says is that the first three varnas, so-called varnas, right, subjugated the fourth varna. They created this oppressor-oppressed model. And why was it so? Because the first three varnas were of Aryan, and these were the native people of the land. That is why they discriminated against them. That is why they oppressed them. That is the logic which was given. Now you have proven that there is no race difference. Correct? Now you can start asking questions, why would these first three people get together to suppress the fourth Varna? Right? If you look at it, the economical power was with the Vaishyas, and the numerical superiority as well as all the skills and this here with the Shudra community, it is more logical that these two would have kind of joined together and oppressed the other two. Correct? In our schools or in our colleges or in your offices, does the majority join together and then the minority are suppressed, or is it the other way? Yes, no? So now you can start asking these logical questions to dismantle this race division myth, right? That is why it was important. There is another one which is there, which is called the Purusha Sukta myth. Somehow they have taken the Purusha Sukta and then they have created a myth that it created a hierarchical system. Right? I don't know how many of you have heard that. Some of you have heard that, Purusha Sukta being there. Yeah, I see a lot of hands. Right? So that has been also challenged, and I have put out, I think not less than 1 year back, I have put out a challenge for anybody to disprove that what is our refutation. I have offered even a price of 50,000 rupees. Right? So far no one has come and claimed it. Okay. So the Purusha Sukta hierarchy myth is also shattered. Now what remains is the caste system myth to be shattered. Right? And together all of us, we should do it so that our Itihasa and our is not corrupted by the myth and the history making the manufactured histories. Is that good? Okay. Now the last question before I leave is, there are a lot of legal challenges which are going to come up, so which we will do. But at the same time, there are also a lot of things which we are dialoguing with the government, trying to make changes. So we have a website called saptarishi.org, saptarishi.org, and we have petitions currently running for protection of Brahmins from hate speech. There is targeted hate speech happening against Brahmins, and that is part of what we call as a civilizational battle, where they want to first destroy one community, then they will use that to go to the next community, they'll go to the next community and others. And how do they do it? Very simple. They will say, they will look at any person and then say he is being casteist. They'll say the person is being Brahminical. Supposing someone comes and says you are being Brahminical, how does a person defend himself? To say, no, he or she say, I am not Brahminical. How do we prove? You can't, because there is not even a definition of Brahminical. Right? So that is how each one of the communities will be attacked and decimated. That is the way to destroy the civilization. Right? So it is not a protection of a particular caste group or something. It is for a protection of our entire civilization. So I request all of you to go and see, take a minute or two to see this petition. There is no financial requirements to support this petition. There is no membership fees, nothing. So supporting such petitions will also help to bring civilizational issues in front of our government. Okay? Is that okay? Thank you. And each of you can talk about these topics. The last one is the word of mouth, because today most of the media power and the social media power is not with us. So if you are convinced, you go and talk in your functions or in your relative gatherings or in friend groups to 10 persons. That is how the word of mouth happens, and that is the most effective way for us to communicate our views. Okay? So I request all of you to take a few minutes to visit that and then see what you can do to help us. Together, let's win this battle. Dharmo Rakshite Rakshita.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. And now I would like to invite Shri Abbas Maldahir with another exciting subject, a narrative you must know and you must communicate to others. Abbas Maldahir.
Namaskar and Jai Shri Ram to everybody on the dais and off the dais. So, perhaps today is the first time when I'm going to use a script to deliver something. It's for multiple reasons. A reason is my father has come to visit me. He's a historian. I am a son of a historian. And when he heard that we have to deliver a lecture on occasion, which is a big one, so he said that when this is going to be seen as a transcript, you must write, you prepare well, and then go. The first time I'm going to deliver, which is not extempore. I'm going to read it out. Apart from that, I will not be speaking anything about what I write so far. I will express my philosophical opinions, views through the process and how I have matured in my writing as of now. And I strongly believe that if we really care about historiography, if we still really care about Itihasa, we have to start writing in the way our ancestors used to write, which was with the use of the prose, with the use of metaphors, with the use of allegory, and really get away from the post-colonial way of writing that does it happen. We have to walk up, make a shift of it. With this, I will begin talking with one of my poems, which I wrote in my second book in the series of the Mughals, whom I now call Timurids. They were not Mughals, by the way. They were always called Timurids. And that poem appeared in the introduction chapter of it. And I was writing this introduction on the day of Holi. And it just happens that you finish the book and then you write introduction. So it was the Holi of this year when I could see in the society people are playing with colors and everyone is so jubilant, very happy, cherishing the moments. But then, because I had just finished the book, I had the memories of the Holi of the Chittor. Holi of a Chittor, it's very important to remember because still people play the Holi with red color only because this is the day when the siege of the Chittor was laid. And a day before it, which was Holika Dahan, the people committed Johar. So there was a battle which was going within the fort, and there was a battle which was running outside the fort. A battle through the bangles, and a battle through the sword. So this was a poem. It starts this way. Holi is not a dance of hues, not just love in crimson dews. It is a fire where falsehood burns, where tyrants fall and fate then turns. Within us sleeps the child divine, Prahlad's faith unbent by time. Within us waits the lion's might, Narsimha's wrath in golden light. The pyre blazed, the witch did sneer, yet truth stood firm, untouched by fear. Holika fell, her magic failed. For Dharma's shield has never paled. And then the tyrant rode with hate, blinded by his lofty state. Where is your God? He mocked and jeered. His throne of blood in dark was steered. But from a pillar, stone and cold, burst forth the force of the legends old. Neither a man, nor beast, nor sword, nor flame. Narsimha came, none dared his name. No steel he bore, no blade he drew. Yet doom upon the demon flew. With claws divine his rift were torn, a tyrant slain, a world reborn. And so today, when Holi nears, awaken sons, dissolve your fears. This is not just the day of mirth. It marks the triumph of Dharma's birth. Do you not hear the echoes call? The demons rise, they seek your fall. The ones who hail Aurangzeb's hand still chain our gods, defile our land. The same who burned the Chittor's bright race, who laughed at Rajputi embrace, at saffron warriors fought and bled. And even now, from Bengal shores, to temple gates with broken doors, the demons march with blades anew, and still we ask if love is due. No, holy is the lion's cry, to rise, to roar, to never die, to tear apart the chains that bind, and cleanse the world of darkened mind. So smear the red of Dharma's fight, let saffron burn in sacred light, for love is not the weakling's throne, but only where its worth is known. So this was a poem which I thought to write in introduction of my book, because I wanted to remind the people that Holi is just not about the joy, but it is to remind you that Narsimha came. He came to vanquish the adharma. We have to see our festivals, our pujas, and every ceremony is something which is a call for the dharma, and we have to rise. So with this, I will jump into what I'm going to read out to you. And you can call it out if you feel that it goes a bit long, because I have gone all throttle to write it through. So, if you stand to the edge of a vast ocean and listen carefully, you will hear waves whispering tales of continents long gone, civilization erased, gods forgotten, and languages buried under the dunes of time. Every civilization in history begins like a drop of water falling into a river. It merges, it gets diluted, gets lost, becomes part of someone else's flow, except one, Bharat. Bharat is not a drop in river. Bharat is the river. Every other civilization a story that ended. Bharat is a story that continues. Every other civilization searches for its origin. Bharat remembers them. Every other civilization left behind dunes. Bharat left behind rituals. Every other civilization tries to reconstruct its past from archaeological fragments. Bharat recites its past every morning in Vedic chant without missing a syllable. Let us begin with the truth that explains all the truths. We still chant the same Vedic mantras today in the same precise meter and pitch as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. This is not mere continuity. This is cosmic stubbornness. Consider what this really means. A man, say, thousands of years ago, and a boy in 2025 create the same sound, in the same order, with the same breaths, with the same vibrations, with the same grammatical breath architecture, with the same auditory geometry, as though separated not by millennia, but by moments, no disruptions, no mutations, no linguistic drips, no semantic erosion. This is not merely the heritage which we talk about. This is civilization, defiance of entropy. In physics, entropy is a natural tendency of systems to move toward disorder. But Bharat's oral tradition defies entropy itself. It preserves order across millennia through the discipline of tradition, through the devotion of communities, through the precision of Shastra. But why do the sound matter? Why the sound is such an important thing which I'm talking about? Because it's the real creative force. That's what the things begin with. It's a metaphysical resonance which exists everywhere. It can never die. It's ontogonal origin. It's cosmological principle, the vibration which gives birth to everything. Now, it's been around 1300 years of the vanquish which we have faced, though still the history is not lost. When the Islamic expansion began, now, in my own historical understanding, I don't consider that the invasion of Sindh happened as you are taught in Chachnama, because Chachnama is a text written centuries after the event would have happened and would have gone through a lot of corruption. But still, for the sake of what stands as a historical document today, we still see that it happened in 712 CE. So, but back then, the Persia is gone. We saw that Persia is erased, Egypt is erased, Mesopotamia is gone, Byzantium is gone, it's broken entirely. Central Asia completely erased. North Africa completely got transformed. Everything ancient collapsed. Nothing existed. But Bharat did not fall. It continued 20, 200, 500, 700, and we are on and on. And it is exactly resembled because we are still chanting the same Vedic mantras which were chanted millennia ago. It continues the same way. Now, the question is why? Why did it happen? It happened with Persia, it happened with Egypt, it happened with Mesopotamia and other places. Because Bharat is not just merely a political entity. We often see this happening through the TV debates where it is reduced to the political entity, but it is way more than that. Bharat indeed is a civilizational ecosystem, which we all know. Now it has become a mainstream narrative. We say that Bharat is a civilizational ecosystem. But where is that Zoroastrian Persian Empire? It's gone. So fragment just exists in Bharat through the Parsis as of now. Bharat was millions of autonomous cultural modules which existed. And Egypt got one god. Egypt got one god, though they also had a pantheon of god. They had multiple gods. Bharat had thousands, and the thousands still live. Many people feel ashamed, and they try to fix it that it's not crore and it's just 33 types. Even we are not to be ashamed of. Even if we have 33,033 crores of deities, how does it really matter? Because we are existing, stand and tall. Now, Bharat's memories are preserved through our Vedas, through Puranas, etc. That's how we talk about our memories. Now, who were those walls which registered the thing? Now, it's become a very common social media parlance that when you go to the Twitter, you will see a Rajput fighting with a Maratha and vice versa. It is a very common trend. I am very active in Twitter, so I know how it goes ugly. But the point is that while the Marathas will point out that Rajputs made an alliance with the Mughals, Timurids. They made an alliance with the Timurids, but they were the wall for 800 years. It started with Bappa Rawal. It continued. They went into the Johor. It continued. The Rajputs were our wall for almost 800 years. And then finally, they got tired. Finally, they got tired after the Battle of Chittor and the alliance was made. But till then, they had been fighting. Maybe that you wouldn't have heard, but Bappa Rawal used to demolish the mosque. Rana Kumbha used to demolish the mosque. Maybe that it will go as a very apolitical statement. But the point was that even when later on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj killed a pig in the mosque, he meant something. He meant a resistance. It was not that he meant to kill the pig in the mosque, but he wanted to make a statement, and so did Rana Kumbha, that you do this to us, we are going to pay you back in the same coin. And it continues. Maratha fire continued after the Rajputs. We saw Rani Tarabai became the vanquisher of Aurangzeb, if I have to say, because it was a Rani Tarabai whose acts really made Aurangzeb stick to the Deccan for 27 years. The man died here a loser man. So everyone on social media will today say, oh, the great Alamgir. But if you really look at his fate, he died trying to conquer the Deccan, but he could never do it. And he got defeated by a female, Rani Tarabai. Now, as we go ahead, it was not just the case. In South also, we have seen a lot of resistance. Now, Amish has come up with a book about where he's talking about the Cholas, where he's talking about how they had avenged Somnath. Now, we also have the cases of the Pandyas and Cheras giving a great resistance to the invasion. It did happen. But again, in normal parlance, we only talk about the Rajputs and Marathas, and the forgotten, or perhaps the footnotes are the Ahoms. But they played a very important role. And then, of course, the British invasion did come to us. But still, we tried to figure out some ways or other. Once upon a time, I had a very different opinion for Raja Ram Mohan Roy, because there were a lot of documents which opened up. But when I spoke to a lot of Bengalis, I figured out that that was the period when everybody was trying to save Hinduism the way they could. We can't really know that what the intent of the people were, because the Hinduism had completely gone away from Bengal. Everyone was trying to find a way somewhere or other, whether it's Brahmo Samaj or any other organization. They were just trying to see that, oh, if we can compete with the monasteristic faith, maybe that this is the way. So everyone was trying their bit. Then came the Swami Vivekananda, we had Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati, and everyone did their part. But in today's social media, you will see that Arya Samaj is fighting with Brahmo Samajis, and Brahmo Samajis is fighting with so-called the traditionalists, and it's on there. But the point is that the Bharat stands today as it stands only because all the people from the time to time came together, or even if they did not come together, they were in different regions trying to put what they could at their best in the different ways. And that's how Bharat stands as the way it stands. Now, so I will just dive a bit into my own subject after having spoken a little about the philosophical angle of it. My subject essentially is, I write on antagonists. You name the antagonists and I might be working on them. So, in fact, after doing 2 books on Babur, I spoke to my publisher and I said that I will not name the king, but I want to do a book on this great legendary king. Then my publisher said that you have become a great advocate for the demons, and you are doing it so well. You are trying, because you are doing it so great, because you are trying to show the public what kind of demon they were. Continue doing the work on them. So I have written a book around Hitler. Of course, it's not the biography of Hitler. It's about the unholy alliance which happened around Second World War. It's between the Nazis and the Arab Muslims. And that alliance was so deep that Hitler once regretted that, oh, I regret that Europe couldn't be conquered by Islam. Maybe that you will be so shocked to hear this. Many think that he was a Christian propagandist. No, he was not actually a Christian propagandist. It just happened that Vatican supported the Nazis. But the truth is that he was trying to form his own Christianity, which was called a positive Christianity. And he saw Jesus Christ as a blonde-haired boy with a blue eyes, the typical Aryan, because the Germans were obsessed with the race. And so it becomes a very important case for them to place Jesus Christ as a proper Aryan, as they see would look like. Now, in this, coming back to this alliance, Hitler was having a great alliance with the Arabs of the Palestine. And you would be surprised to know that it was one Arab who incited Hitler to do the Holocaust. And it was such a case that Hitler was seen as a second prophet. It's a kufr, I know. A Muslim will tell you that it's a kufr, but it did happen. He was seen as, although he was compared as Allah. Now, why I'm speaking to you about this? I'm speaking to you about this is because a lot of people don't really care about what Shatru Bodh means. So we just attended the Jaipur dialogue where the theme itself was Shatru Bodh. But Shatru Bodh and Swayam Bodh is such an essential thing to understand that today you may see the Jews as the Abrahamics. But if the truth be told, the Jews were the people who stood by you, or rather to India, even when we did not stand by them. Case in point is 1971 war. The Israel was with us. They stood with us. Though America was the ally of Pakistan, and America was also the ally of Israel. But Israel chose to stand by India. In 1999, Kargil war, Israel stood by us. But we were so late to recognize Israel as a state. And there is no country or state right now which stands against the Islamic forces as does the Israel does. So we need to learn a lot from them. We need to see that how they work. We need to know about the unholy alliance of this world war, because that really led to the creation of Al-Qaeda and many other things, which you will figure out if you pick my book. And diverting a bit from there, I will take you a bit through the Timurids too, the Mughals. Now, there's a case here. The case is that if I ask you that who destroyed the Ram Mandir, you can give an answer, please. You can go loud and tell. Who destroyed the Ram Mandir of Ayodhya? You know, you have fallen into the trap of the Muslims where they wanted you to. They forced the inscription to build a case that the mosque goes as old as 1526, 28. They forced the inscription so badly that even the name of Babur was written wrong. And that's the reason why in the court we could not even prove that who destroyed the temple, because we were in the trap of the Muslims. We were trying to find the Babur as a villain. I'm not saying that Babur is a good guy. He's a bad guy for sure. But he did not demolish the temple. The temple's demolition was commissioned by Aurangzeb. And if you read the inscription, if you know the Farsi, if you know the language, you can make it out. Everything is out there. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have fallen trapped to a lot of myths, which is also a manufactured myth from a many other side, which we felt that this is a good thing because you felt that you have found your villain. Babur is your villain. But you were taken for the ride because even our historians did commit the mistake of following Anis Beveridge Sujan's translation, who was a translation of Babur Nama, but she was responding to a reporting manager who were British. Britishers hated Hindus and Muslims equally. For them, it was important to vilify the Mughal Empire, which was the immediate predecessors of them. So they did what they could. And we fall in the trap because we did not know the language. We just followed the translation and we felt, oh, this is the point. But that was not the point, and we have been taken through the right. All I can submit and say is that history is a very important subject. It can be weaponized very much against us. It's important to learn the language if you want to go into the history. Otherwise, history will always be through secondary sources, and we will fall flat. It's very important that we wake up soon. Thank you.
There was this idea of a Chakravarti and Samrat, and they did a Ashwamedh, they did a Rajasuya. I'll just give you references to my talks, instead of giving the details. Like if you see the Rajasuya Yajna of Yudhishthir, that's about 7,500 years ago. So we are going like 5,000 years before some of the instances we saw. How many of you have heard of the World Bank study, Angus Madison study of a GDP of the world, right? So he did a study for 2,000 years from today going backwards. And something very impressive you see. Today, if you look at in the recent last 10 years, the GDP contribution of India is slowly getting bigger and so on. But if you go back like last 300 centuries, 400 centuries, and actually 1,000 years in the past, it was shrinking. And then if you go back all the way to 2,000 years before, you'll be surprised. In fact, exactly the year, let's say 0 of the Gregorian calendar, the country which contributed the most by the measure of GDP is India. You can check Angus Madison graph, and do that. Now, this is the time that we are talking, the Indian kings are conquering all over, extremely powerful kings, and contributing and doing the navigation and business and so on. Now, we can just extrapolate, and we have to be very careful. But if you look at the Rajasuya Yajna, essentially Yudhishthira's 4 brothers going in the 4 directions, you can literally take the map, look at the Sabha Parva, Mahabharata descriptions and see where Nakul goes in the west direction, see where Arjun goes is kind of the northwest and the north direction, see where Bhima goes in the eastern direction and Sahadev goes all the way to the south, the rest of India. So this is not something new. Actually, as you go back in the past, the story gets better and better. Okay, so now that's Mahabharata in short, and of course the Ashwamedha Yajna afterwards, but I'll skip the details after the war. But let's go further back in the past to about 14,000 years. That's the time of Ramayana. And of course, how do we get this time? Because all the codes, all the clues are given in these texts. The Mahabharata text, we have the clues. The Ramayana text, we have the clues. Many times I talk so much about astronomy clues in these texts. I talk astronomy because astronomy is the most accurate and precise science that we have. We have in the modern science world of last 500, 600 years, and we have this science in the entire humanity's quest of whatever that timeline is. But once we get this timeline, I mean, the question may be, is that all it that is out there? Actually not. So we may say all the astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata are descriptions of Mahabharata times, astronomy descriptions of Ramayana or of Ramayana times. But you can take away the word astronomy. You can simply say descriptions of Mahabharata text are descriptions of Mahabharata times. Descriptions of Valmiki Ramayana are descriptions of Ramayana times. And I just want to take one small event out of this Ramayana. How many of you, I can see a little bit, how many of you have had a chance to listen to one of my YouTube talk? I have given possibly 10 on that subject called Sugriva's Atlas. Okay, so watch these people's hands. So afterwards, if you have any questions, you can ask them. Okay, but briefly, I just want to make a salient point, something very fascinating that matches with the geography and the geology and climatology that we know, and even the oceanography that we know of 14,000 years, and that perfectly matches with what Sugriva is saying about the world that he knew. Okay? Fast forward in the Ramayana, where Bhagwan Ram and Sugriva come together, and now they start searching for Sita. All the Vanaras are coming from different parts, and they are coming together in the capital of Vanara kingdom, that is Hampi Bellary now, the Kishkinda. In fact, many times people ask me, they're not interested in what I'm saying. They just want to know who are the Vanaras. Okay, so my easy answer, now today I'm in Bengaluru, so I'll say that my easy answer is one of the great scholar that is sitting on the podium. I say, do you know my friend Dr. Shiva Shastri? They say, yeah, I have heard with him. I say, what is the capital of Vanara kingdom? They say, Kishkinda. I say, where is it today? They say, in Hampi Bellary, Karnataka. I say, the Vanaras look like Dr. Shiva Shastri. Okay, but I'm going to say, I have a lot of Kannadigas in front of me. I can say, if you shouldn't have this question, Vanaras look like people from Karnataka. Actually, they were human beings, just like us. We are the descendants of those Vanaras. So those Vanara 4 parties come together. They are divided into 4 batches, and they are sent in the 4 directions. Before they go there, just like we set our GPS, or in the old times, we used to look at the maps and kind of figure out which are the key points where I have to take a turn, and so on and so forth. Sugriva is giving them instructions. Okay, Sugriva is giving them instruction what to follow in different directions. And just to briefly summarize what I want to say is, this is the book. I mean, number of you have seen the talks. Those who have not seen the talks, take that as a homework. You can go and type in YouTube Sugriva's Atlas Nilesh Oak, and you'll get few. But it's something very fascinating, almost unbelievable, as much as unbelievable history that Venkatesh ji shared with us, because that's not what we have been taught. We have been brainwashed the other way. Sugriva knows in the east direction, starting with India as the center, okay, all the way to South America, with everything in between. So think of all the countries of the East Asia, like the Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Polynesia, and he might be knowing Australia. You know, there is not always an exact way to identify this, but all the way to South America, where even he's describing the structures, the petroglyphs. Everyone understands petroglyphs, like things engraved into the rocks. There is a petroglyph in South America, in a country called Peru. They call it Candelabra of Andes. And when the Spanish people came there 500 years ago, and when they asked them, like, what is this structure? Did you build it? They say, oh, we didn't do it. What about your grandparents? They did not do it. It was always there. Do you know why it was built? Nobody knows. It's almost unbelievable if I tell you that Ramayana describes what that structure is, describes it so beautifully. You can actually look at that picture, and in the other hand, you can have Valmiki Ramayana, Kishkinda Kand, Sarga 39, 40, 41, 42, the description of the east direction. And if I had a picture, I would have shown it to you, but you can just check it afterwards. Trishira Kanchanas Ketus Talastasya Mahatmana Stapita Parvatasya Agre Virajati Savedika. There cannot be a better description of that structure. It does not stop there. It even goes and explains why it was created, who created it, and what is its physical location. Purvasya Adishi Nirmanam Krutam Tat Tridasheshware Tatah Para Hemamaya Sriman Udaya Parvata. Like the Andes Mountains is called Udaya Parvata. It's also called Ananta, right into Ramayana. And if you go to Bhagavad Puran, it is basically the Ananta mountain is described as a mountain in Patal. If you are not familiar with my work, you are not going to believe anything that I'm saying right now. Okay? So that's what in the east direction. In the west direction, if you follow the geographical maps, it's just a series of mountains and then some of the seas that you see. And he describes all the way until the Alps, the Switzerland. In the northern direction, he describes all the way up to the Arctic Sea, and in the southern direction, he describes all the way up to the Antarctica, including Antarctica. Now, of course, the Europeans will tell you they discovered Antarctica, right? But by the same logic, Europeans will also tell you they discovered you and me, and they discovered America and so on, and they discovered the Indians on that side too. Okay, so they will tell whatever they want to say. That is their narrative. Okay, but you can just look at it, and this is about 14,000 years ago. Something very interesting. When Sugriva describes up to the Alps, he says, I don't know anything beyond this. Beyond this meaning west of the Alps, which is what? Western Europe. He says, I don't know anything. In fact, his description is, it's all darkness, and I just don't have idea. There is no world out there. Don't go there. When he talks about South America, he has nothing to say about the North America. He doesn't say anything. He says, I don't know. This is all I know. Now, that should surprise you. Like, he's talking all of these areas, including Arctic Sea and Antarctica. Arctic Sea, he says, Uttara Payasam Nidhi. Antarctica, he calls it capital of Yama. Yamasya Rajadhani. That is how he calls it. And he says, don't go there. By chance, you may go there, but you'll never come back. Actually, that's the word he uses. But the question is, why doesn't he not describe the Western Europe or North America? Very good. Ice Age. Because if you can go and check the map of the world 14,000 years ago, you will find practically most of the North America, all of Canada, and almost half of America, like the Ohio line or Wisconsin glaciers, you might have heard this, including all the 5 lakes. They were all under ice. So there is nothing to go there, 2 to 4 kilometer thick ice sheet. And if you look at the Western Europe, essentially the same condition. Think of most of the countries, maybe exception of Spain and Portugal and some of those places, everything else above was either under a complete sheet of ice or conditions like tundra and so on and so forth. Now, what does that mean? I want to conclude. The conditions is this. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, now you say, what the Patanjali Yoga Sutra has to do with it? I was teaching the Mahabharata astronomy some 7 years ago in one of the Indian universities. And when I was quoting Patanjali Yoga Sutra to understand how different people twist the knowledge in a different way, we call it Vritti. Right when the Patanjali Yoga Sutra begins, it talks of Vritti. They said, hey, Nilesh, if you like science, do it, but please don't bring Patanjali Yoga Sutra into it. But all our Darshana Shastras are meant to see, meant to perceive, meant to comprehend. Okay? If you look at Samadhipad, now look at these 3 things. Other 2 words you might have heard, just I want to briefly mention. emic versus etic. Etic is like the outsider looking at our culture. And the academics will tell you it's supposed to be objective. That's utter nonsense. Okay? So what is that outsider view? I'll tell you in a minute. But there is also the other people, our people say emic view. So whatever we think of our culture, that's what we should believe. Even that is also problematic. Okay? Just because we read something in our grantha and we immediately run with it and blindly believe it. In the morning session, we had these great descriptions of too many people, too many sahasra. We heard about the sahasra. And they said, can the yajna go for sahasra varsha? Well, there is a way you can do it. How many of you have heard of Sahasravartan? Say, for example, Ganesha Atharva Shirsha. You can have 100 people chanting Atharva Shirsha, and if they do for what? 10 times or do the mathematics of 100 times or whatever, you can get whatever the number you want. So actually sometime, say Ravana did Tapasya for 1,000 years, maybe whatever that critical infrastructure project he was doing, he had 1,000 people to work with him. And we can, so there can be different interpretations. But you see a emic thing, which is our internal view, and we should trust it. I would say that's also not the right point. Because then we create all kinds of chaos, which is what we did, what is what the outsiders were critiquing for. External view, objective, that is also another nonsense. But we have a Darshana Shastra. We have a 6 Darshana Shastra, and even if you want to add Buddhist, Jainism, and even Charvak, not a problem. That's the Pratyaksha. If you consider all these Darshana Shastra and start studying our text, you actually get a very realistic view. Patanjali summarizes that. I am interpreting this, Patanjali. He says, Pramana. There is a vritti of using a pramana. He says, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. If you use this formula, you will get close to the truth. You will actually get to the truth, if not a best approximation to the truth. But if you don't do that, then what happens? Which is what the etic position is, outsiders' position is, that is what they have done in the last 200 years. Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam. They created mythology. They call it mythology because they created it, and then they say, hey, this is a mythology. If you don't follow this pramana method, if you don't follow the scientific method, what you are going to get is basically viparyayo, opposite of that, which is a mithya. And then an emic approach that we think is ours, that's fine, but we must be very cautious, because the problem with emic approach is if you just read something in our text and without analyzing, without trying to test, if you just accept it blindly, then we end up in many contradictions and we end up with many theories. What is that sutra from Patanjali? Shabda jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpa. Which is to say, you have a Shabda Jnan, you read something, but if there is no accompanying, supporting evidence in support of that, then if you, and you still boast it, you still talk about it, then it leads to vikalpa, it leads to confusion, it leads to delusion. Thank you.